In last week's episode of my solo road trip across New Zealand, I travelled down the west coast from Greymouth to Wanaka, visiting beautiful lakes, glaciers and waterfalls along the way. In this week's episode, I summit 2 mountains in one day, Isthmus Peak and the most famous hike in New Zealand, Roy's Peak in Wanaka. I hope you enjoy. If you're new here, my name is Eowyn, and a week ago I decided to quit my full-time job and travel the world. I figured a good way to start this journey would be to re-explore my home country, New Zealand.
Ah, that's still wet. Ooh. Okay, so at any rate, today we're walking up Mount Isthmus, and my shoes are still wet from yesterday, which is gonna make it horrible, but that's fine. The weather's lovely, so let's get out there and do it. It's a beautiful day today. Absolutely stunning. Like, look at this.
Roy's Peak has long been known as New Zealand's best day hike, taking around 6 hours to complete. However, there's another day hike nearby called Isthmus Peak, which sits in between Lake Wanaka and Lake Hawea, more towards the northern end. It also takes 6 hours, and as a local who somewhat refuses to do super cliche touristy activities, I decided I would start by doing Isthmus Peak and then Roy's Peak. Earlier in this trip, I hiked up Mount Fife, which I personally believe is the best day hike in the country. But at this stage, I still hadn't done Roy's Peak, so I couldn't make a definitive conclusion. As I climbed up the 1,000 vertical metres I had to do, I was continually stunned by the magnificence of the landscape. This hike definitely has views like no other. The landscape was open and wide, and being surrounded by lakes on both sides, it almost felt like I was a little bit isolated from the rest of the landscape. At the top, I had a quick wee snack and enjoyed the view. Out, gonna go get petrol, get food, Roy's Peak, because doing 2 mountains in one day, it's normal, totally normal. Alright, so I'm gonna say that the number of cars in this car park is the reason I didn't want to do this walk. I'm doing it late in the day. Hopefully everyone will be going down as I come up, and it'll just be me and I'll actually have fun time, because I don't like crowded hikes. They're the worst thing in the world, so I don't know, see how we go. Yep. Now, once I got back down from Isthmus, I looked at the weather conditions for the next few days, and it was dreadful. And I realised that I probably had just enough time to do Roy's Peak if I could do it in about 3 to 3.5 hours. So, as everyone else was heading back down the mountain, I was heading up. I knew I would have to walk back down in the dark, but I also figured that if I went up there at sunset, not too many other people would be there, if anyone at all. As I walked up the hill, I found that the track was a bit boring compared to Isthmus. It kind of just zigzags back and forth, and whilst the view over Lake Wanaka is obviously stunning and absolutely gorgeous, it was the same view the whole time, whereas on Isthmus Peak it changed a lot more, and in some ways I liked that track better. However, when it comes to that beautiful run up along the ridge, the heaven of Instagrammers, filmmakers, and anyone who wants to put a cool photo of themselves on the internet, Roy's Peak absolutely wins. Well, lo and behold, I made it to the summit. But psych, guess what? It's not the summit. Okay, so my fun fact of the day is absolutely going to have to be that the quote-unquote Roy's Peak lookout summit that you always see in videos is not the summit. The summit's like another few hundred meters up there, and I'm not doing it because I already walked up a mountain today. The lookout's actually down from there, and it makes sense that it is because you have that long super cool thing you run along and all that sort of jazz, but I mean I can't say if it's overrated or not because I have a messed up perception of things, but I am quite stoked because I think it only took me like an hour and a half, hour 45 to get here, which means it shouldn't take like more than an hour to get back down, which means it will take less than 3 hours, which is what I was hoping. I mean, it will take 3 hours by the time I end my filmmaking, of course, because is that helicopter ruining my shot? Hey, I can see the holiday park I'm staying at tonight from here. That's cool. Sick. But yeah, because I figured that if Doc said 6 hours, that's a tourist 6 hours, which means it's my 3 hours. The more popular a hike is, the more unfit Doc assumes people are, and it is like a protection thing. But it does mean that if you do a lot of hiking, you have to account for the difference in time. So for me, for example, Isthmus was supposed to be 6 hours as well, and it actually took me, I think, about 4.5, which is 4.5, which is surprising. And this helicopter better not be ruining my audio. It's definitely ruining my audio, it totally is. Seriously, can you shut up? I get on top of a mountain and I can't have peace and quiet because here's helicopters. At any rate, the view's really good. Would recommend. Oh, what was I talking about? Hours. So yeah, I figured this would take me 3 hours or so, half the time, which is why I was prepared to start at 3 p.m. And I was the only person going up, and I figured I'd be the only person up here, which I'm really stoked about. Yeah, I would definitely recommend doing this walk at sunrise or sunset because the view, like, there's less people around, and obviously that's when the mountains look the nicest, you know, or with snow as well, of course. Yeah, oh my gosh, I don't think I look very nice. I can't tell because like the glare's on the camera. Maybe I like change my hair up a bit, like refilm that whole thing, because and do that. It's gonna be cold. It's gonna be cold walking back down, but that's okay. I have a nice place to have a hot shower for the second time on this trip. I don't really actually want to walk back down. I'm kind of feeling lazy. Maybe I'll just stay here and freeze to death. Yeah, but this is the view. Yeah, definitely a worthwhile hike, I think. Maybe. I don't know, it's definitely nice and easy, that's for sure. Let's go. Might not film on the way back down because I might run it. So it's all in shadow now. The whole thing's gonna be dark as, that's fine. So this is Eowyn signing out from the beautiful view up here that I really want to look at for a bit longer, and I'm going to, just off camera. Adios amigos. Catch you back down somewhere lower with less of a good view. At the end of the day, I had walked over 30k with nearly 2,000 metres of climb and 2,000 metres of descent. To say I was shattered would be a gross understatement. So I hope you enjoyed coming on these hikes with me. And for future reference, I would not recommend doing both these hikes in one day unless you think you are very, very fit. And we're done. And we're out. In next week's episode, I explore Fiordland National Park. I deal with being in the middle of a thunderstorm in the middle of nowhere with over 300 millimetres of rain in one day, and severely regret every decision I've ever made in my life. Plus, I also do some good cooking, read books, a lot of books as it was very wet, and I didn't leave the van. In here somewhere, I also got helicoptered off the Capri track, but we're just going to ignore that. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next week. Toodaloo.